So we had a historic day over the weekend in Korea. President Moon Jae-in of South Korea and, of course, Kim Jong Un of North Korea met and crossed the border together. So it was the first time in decades. The war isn't even officially over. The Korean War never officially ended. There was a truce, but it never officially ended. Well, now they're going to end the Korean War officially. So you had the South Korean president cross the border with Kim Jong Un into North Korea. Kim Jong Un crossed the border into South Korea. And listen, this is just good news for the world because it looks like we have a giant de-escalation here, two parties coming to the table and indeed making peace. Now, the details of exactly what's going to happen have yet to be ironed out. And, you know, therein lies the real important story, because what is Kim Jong Un going to agree to? And what will the West, particularly the United States, accept in terms of Kim Jong Un? So in other words, are we going to be like, okay, you have nuclear weapons and there's your deterrent, so now we can all get along? That's not going to happen. Or is he going to say, yeah, I'll give up nuclear weapons, but what exactly do you mean by you giving up nuclear weapons? Are you really going to give up your nuclear weapons fully and completely so that you have no deterrent anymore? So I don't think that's going to happen. He might say, yeah, that's what I'm going to do, but I don't think that's what he's going to do. And we'll have more on this, not only in this story, but stories we're going to do later on in the show. But listen, no matter how you slice it or dice it, this is wonderful news. North Korea and South Korea, sat down at the table, literally, spoke to each other, and as you could tell by this picture, it went pretty goddamn well. So let's take a look at a short news clip on this.
It has been a day full of extraordinary moments and images, and it started with this one. The supreme leader of North Korea walking across the dividing line into the south. Kim Jong Un then grabbed the hand of South Korean President Moon Jae-in, and together they stepped back, for a moment, onto North Korean soil. As their summit meeting began, they sat across a table exactly 2,018 millimeters wide. The backdrop, a huge painting of a famous North Korean mountain range. Immediately, President Moon set the tone, telling Kim Jong Un he had been brave to make the journey south. As the day rolled on, more extraordinary images have continued. Kim's limousine scooting back and forth across the dividing line, his personal bodyguards running alongside. The two leaders planting a tree with soil and water brought from the north and the south. But perhaps the most fascinating moment of all was their afternoon stroll. Sitting for nearly half an hour on a bridge sipping tea, deep in what appears to have been animated conversation. It is a massive contrast to what started with one of the most brutal wars of the 20th century. In 1953, a truce was signed at exactly the same place the two leaders met today. But the conflict has never ended. Just a few months ago, it really looked like military conflict might break out again, as Kim Jong Un launched ever more powerful missiles and tested ever larger nuclear devices. Today, just 4 months later, the two leaders emerged from their summit to declare their intention to end the conflict permanently.
There will be no Korean War. A new era of peace will open. We've suffered so much, but now we stand together. Mr. Kim and I agree to have the Korean Peninsula without any nuclear arsenal.
We cannot be separated. We are one nation. When we met, we realised we cannot be parted. We are one nation.
It has been a truly remarkable day here in South Korea, and a brilliant piece of political theatre by President Moon and Kim Jong Un. And it may be the beginning of something really different. But it's worth remembering that this railway bridge behind me here, between the south here and the north over there, was reopened in the early 2000s to great fanfare. There was even talk of trains running from Seoul all the way to Europe, and it never happened. The path is now open to the much bigger prize, a face-to-face meeting between Kim Jong Un and US President Donald Trump. That could now happen within weeks, and it will be an even more extraordinary moment. Rupert Wingfield-Hayes, BBC News, on the North-South Korea border.
So the backstory to what happened here is that President Park of South Korea, the former president, was impeached over corruption. We covered that story not that long ago. And President Moon Jae-in is the pro-peace candidate, and he had the overwhelming support of South Koreans. There's been a giant grassroots movement. Many activists in South Korea have been pushing for peace aggressively. Now, this is all good news. Here's the part that I'm skeptical of. Take a look at this headline. Kim Jong Un promises to give up nuclear weapons if U.S. vows not to invade. Now, nuclear experts have been weighing in on this. In fact, one of them spoke to The Intercept in a very interesting article. And the nuclear experts are saying, yeah, no. So what Kim Jong Un means by we're going to do denuclearization is very different from the perception of what hardliners want it to mean. So John Bolton gave an interview the other week, and he said, yeah, sure, denuclearization is great. Kim Jong Un needs to tell us where we bring our ships in and where we land our planes, and then we'll take all of his nuclear weapons out of the country and be done with them. Bring them to Tennessee. And the nuclear experts are like, no. See, when he talks about denuclearization, well, he might mean, hey, I'll give up my ability to do long-range strikes. So in other words, I'll keep my nuclear weapons, but don't worry, I don't have the long-range capability, so it won't be a threat against the United States. Another thing is, hey, I'll stop doing nuclear tests. Now, some experts say what he's doing here is a power play, Kim Jong Un, because the argument or the front he's trying to put on is, oh, that's it. I got all. I'm totally nuclear. I'm totally capable. I have all the nuclear capabilities that I'd ever need, and so now I just want everybody to know I'm negotiating from a position of strength. So I'm going to come to the table and let you guys know, hey, since I have a deterrent to Western aggression and to whatever South Korea wants to do to us. So I just want you to know I'm totally secure and I got everything on lock here. So let's make a show of solidarity and of peace. And then that's supposed to send the message of confidence to the world. Like, hey, why is he acting peaceful? Well, maybe he's acting peaceful because he's trying to portray, I already have the weapons that I need. Now, the nuclear experts say he actually probably doesn't, because the number of nuclear tests he's done are not enough to indicate he's successfully come up with whatever the long-range technology is in order to nuke a place like the United States, for example. So there's a bunch of different things that could be going on here. Now, again, at the end of the day, I think it's still fantastic news. I believe that to my core, and anybody who's, trying to act like any possible alternative is better than this, I think they're dead wrong. And the president of South Korea has been using, again, what the experts call strategic flattery of the U.S. So, I mean, this guy is brilliant, and they often talk about, oh, you want a leader who plays chess, not checkers, or whatever they say, three-dimensional chess, or whatever the fuck. And that's kind of what the president of South Korea is doing, because as he's been, working for peace with North Korea, what he's done is, they said, stroked the ego of Donald Trump, and anytime they do something positive that's a step towards peace, he basically pawns off all of it to Trump and says, Donald Trump, you're the reason why this is really happening. We want to thank you for all the wonderful work that you're doing. It's because of you that Kim Jong Un is really stepping up here and coming to the table for peace. And then Trump, like he was doing a rally the other day, and in the rally he said repeatedly, this has everything to do with me. It's got absolutely everything to do with me. Even the president of South Korea says it. So this is strategic flattery, stroking his ego so that he can take credit for peace. But again, the big test is going to be, if indeed it happens, the meeting between Kim Jong Un and Donald Trump. So Kim Jong Un met with Pompeo already, and he's supposed to meet with Donald Trump in the near future. And here's the thing. We want Donald Trump to have a giant ego going into this and care most about how this looks to everybody else. Because when you sit down at the table with Kim Jong Un, and if your only position is the John Bolton position, which is total and complete denuclearization, we're going to come and we're going to take all your weapons and that's going to be the end of it. Well, that's something Kim Jong Un ultimately is not going to agree to. Now, he will make concessions. So again, he might say, I won't do any more tests. The tests are done. So you get to go save face to the press and to your country and say, look, see, he's not doing nuclear tests anymore. What does that show? Maybe it shows he doesn't have nuclear weapons. Or Kim Jong Un might say, we're going to no more long-range technology. Or he might say, hey, we have one facility you can come and shut down and take it away, and then you go to your people and say, see, we got what we wanted. So there are going to be real concessions on Kim Jong Un's part. But listen, and here's the part of the story nobody's going to tell you. If Kim Jong Un says, I'm going to give away all my nuclear weapons and that's it, he's lying, because he's not going to do that. And the second point is, if he did do that, he's the biggest idiot on the planet. And I say that not because Kim Jong Un's a good guy or I want him to do that. No, not at all. I say that because he saw what happened to Saddam Hussein. He saw what happened to Gaddafi, which is the more important example, where Gaddafi gave up his weapons to the U.S. As a show of, hey, don't invade me. Here, I'll do what you want as long as you don't topple me. And then immediately the U.S. toppled him. Years later, they toppled him. So what that example showed is you can't trust the U.S. If the U.S. says, hey, just give up your weapons and everything will be fine. I almost fell out of my chair. Because what they've demonstrated is, no. If you give up your weapons, they're just going to use that as fuel to say, well, now we know we could topple him because he can't attack us. So, I guess there's a small chance he gives up all of his nukes, but he would never give up his conventional weapons because he has plenty of conventional weapons and he wants to keep those again as a deterrent pointed at South Korea so that we know if the U.S. does anything to him, he can launch on South Korea. Or if South Korea does anything to him, he can launch on South Korea. He's going to want to keep weapons as a deterrent to Western aggression because, again, the West shows all the time we don't stop at anything to get regime change at the places we want fucking regime change. Gaddafi is the perfect example. Thank you for giving up your weapons. Now we're going to topple you. So the lesson from that is, okay, don't give up your weapons. Don't give it up. And in fact, people, their military leaders in the U.S. are like, they might not say, other people might not admit this publicly. Politicians might not admit this publicly, but he wants those weapons as a deterrent. Because we'll come up with some reason and go invade him and topple him if he doesn't have the weapons. So I'm skeptical when they say, oh, he promises to give up nuclear weapons if the U.S. vows not to invade. However, even given all those facts that I just told you and the different directions this can go in, it's still good news. Because let's say they have the meeting. If Donald Trump is just willing to accept a big concession from Kim Jong Un, like no more tests or no more long-range technology, or here, one facility will shut down. If he's willing to accept that, well, then Trump can go back here and say, I did it, amazing, tremendous peace. He's already taking credit for it. But he could really take credit and say, that's it, we made a peace deal, unbelievable, it worked out, we don't need to worry about this issue anymore. And that would actually be a good thing. And then you might have some idiots here in the U.S. who say, no, but he still has some nukes or he still has some military capabilities, so that's not a win, but it would still be a win. Because, again, what you're seeing here is, despite everything else, he's not going to offensively attack people. He knows what would happen to him if he were to attack the U.S. or to attack South Korea. So we know, as a matter of fact, he's no offensive threat. Now, he's a menace against his own people. There's no doubt about that. He's done horrible things. He's a brutal dictator. All that can be true, but it's also true he's no threat to South Korea, no offensive threat to South Korea or the U.S. But listen, in this instance, the bulk of the credit, without a doubt, goes to the activists in South Korea, the people in North Korea who wanted peace, and Moon Jae-in, the new president of South Korea, who is a peace candidate. That's where the bulk of the credit goes. And we just have to hope that Trump cares more about his ego and how things are perceived than, the position of the neocons. Because the neocons are going to be pushing him. In fact, John Bolton just said it. Oh, we should do the Libya model with North Korea. Why not just tell him, hey, if you give up your weapons, we're just going to topple you? Because that's what that is. That's exactly what that is. So Trump needs to be able to fend off Pompeo and John Bolton and all the idiot neocons in his administration and say, no, fuck off, you're wrong, and then save face and say, I made peace, even though he's not responsible and we're all going to know he's not primarily responsible for peace. But if he can just passively accept whatever concessions and pretend like it's the perfect deal, I'll take it. I'll fucking take it. And listen, the thing for me is, I consider, on the issue of North Korea, I consider any administration a success where there's no hot war. Because the U.S. has been wanting regime change in North Korea forever. And so any administration that doesn't attack North Korea, fine, I'll take it. And I'll consider you a success on that issue. So all Donald Trump needs to do is not attack them, and I'll say, good enough. Thank you, Donald. Good job. But if it were to go a little further than that, and he were to just accept that North Korea and South Korea came to terms, that'd be even better. Just accept whatever concessions Kim Jong Un gives. I'm relatively certain that the new South Korean president is going to accept whatever, token concessions Kim Jong Un gives, because he's a peace guy, and I think he knows that he's not an offensive threat. So if they're going to accept the concessions, the U.S. needs to accept the concessions, and you just got to hope that Donald Trump wants to save face more than he wants to listen to all the neocons in his administration. So this is a great story, no matter how you slice it or dice it. It's definitely more complicated than the media is letting on, because again, they framed it as, oh, Kim Jong Un is just promising to give up his weapons. I'm sure the details are a lot more murky than that, and there is going to be a back and forth. And we just have to hope that Trump's idiocy doesn't blow this up, because there's a chance that when he sits down with Kim Jong-un, he's like, okay, we're going to take all your weapons, right? And that's when Kim Jong-un will be like, whoa, no, I want peace, but here's what I'm offering. And then, the U.S. could say, all right, that works. Here's what we'll offer in return, relief of sanctions and stuff like that. So we just have to wait and see. But there's a decent chance that at the end of all this, I'll say good enough, and as long as Trump sits passively by while the North and the South make peace, fine. That'd be a good scenario. A bad scenario would be, Trump's blindsided by the fact that Kim Jong-un is not going to give up 100% of what, the U.S. wants, and then he acts like offended and says, no, now we're going to get tough. We're going to get tough on them. That would be a disaster, because let the North and the South take the lead on this, because they actually want peace. U.S. should just accept whatever terms they come to, and the terms I'm sure will make sense to one extent or another, and that's good enough for me.